Prologue. Elena returns to the ruined temple where she was once crowned, now haunted by memories and ghosts. As her hoverpod lands in the storm-ravaged desert, she confronts the eternal fire, a raging elemental force, and the impossible figure within it. Samson, alive and transformed. Once believed dead, Samson now claims to be the prophet, wielding unnatural blue flames and declaring allegiance not to the phoenix but to the great serpent, a god said to be the true source of the eternal fire. Elena is torn between disbelief, grief, and awe as Samson offers her vengeance against those who destroyed their kingdom. When he bends the eternal fire to his will, something Elena never could, she realizes his power is real. As he promises to help reclaim Ravence, Elena reaches for his hand despite sensing a darker wrath behind his divine facade. Together, they prepare to unleash their fury on the world. In Chapter 1, Elena leads a covert team of black-scale soldiers, Visha, Aquino, and Akiri, on a mission to infiltrate the western watchtower above the city of Magar. Though she is nominally in command, her authority is constantly undercut by Visha's confidence and the twins' skepticism. As they climb the cliffs, they fall behind schedule, and the tower's searchlights activate early, exposing them. A sentry encounter turns violent, triggering alarms. The group hides and eventually reaches the tower, where Visha uses her poisonous touch to silently kill a guard. Elena plants explosives, but while surveying the city wall, she discovers civilians nearby. Dias lit for Lal Jun reveal their presence. Visha had known but kept it from her. When Elena hesitates to detonate, Visha seizes the remote and destroys the tower, collapsing it onto the wall and the unsuspecting civilians. Though the breach succeeds, Elena is left shaken by the collateral damage caused under her command. In Chapter 2, Elena and a black-scale strike force push through the breached western wall of Magar, stepping over the rubble and corpses, some of them Ravani civilians. Distraught by the unintended casualties, Elena confronts Visha about lying during recon. Before Visha can answer, Jantari warbirds attack, but are intercepted by Samson's Blackwings. Elena is disturbed by how much pleasure she feels watching the destruction. Still shaken, she joins Visha in a city skirmish. Despite injuries, they kill a squad of Jantari soldiers and press on. As the assault escalates, Elena spots civilians lit Dias among the rubble, confirming her worst fears. Non-combatants were in the blast zone. Guilt and fury churn within her. The Jantari deploy a cruiser and then a terrifying mechanized war machine. The hull enters the fray, mowing down soldiers. Elena tries to summon her fire, but fails, until the inferno itself bends toward her, hissing, sensing her pain. Her Agni begins to awaken. In Chapter 3, Samson leads a triumphant assault into Magar through the northern gate after the western tower falls. Driving a cruiser alongside Chandi, he follows the signal of Elena's Agni, sensing her awakening power. When he finds her under attack by a mechanized Jantari hull, he unleashes his blue fire, destroying the machine and killing enemy soldiers. He and Elena argue over the civilian casualties, but press on toward the city center. As dawn nears, Samson arranges a parley with General Edmund of the Jantari, despite growing pain from his Agni. During the tense standoff, Samson reveals that the Jantari's communications were intercepted and reinforcements will not arrive. He signals Elena, who has quietly guided flames to encircle the enemy. When Edmund threatens to kill hostages, Samson seizes his weapon, kills the guards, and immolates a soldier in front of him. With the Jantari trapped by fire, Samson offers the general one final chance to surrender. In Chapter 4, Elena and Samson establish control over Magar after the city's fall. Samson reports that 800 Jantari soldiers were captured and 200 Ravani prisoners freed. Though victorious, Elena is haunted by guilt over the civilians killed during the breach, casualties Visha may have knowingly allowed. Samson dismisses regret as weakness, asserting that sacrifice is the price of vengeance. Tension grows between them as Samson's fervor deepens and Elena's discomfort with his divine claim sharpens. When Samson insists regret has no place in war, Elena demands funerals for the dead, asserting her authority. Though hailed as a hero by her people, Elena finds herself numb and unworthy of their praise. Seeking solace, she enters a phoenix temple, where she grapples with her fractured faith, torn between Samson's claim of the serpent god and her inherited belief in the phoenix. Refusing to abandon her family's devotion, Elena vows to uncover the truth and begins arranging funeral rites with a temple priestess. In Chapter 5, Samson visits the Jantari prisoner camp outside Magar, reveling in the sight of his enemies defeated. Though Chandi urges him to rest, he insists on observing the captives, aware of rising tensions and his own growing weakness. When General Edmund begins rallying soldiers, Samson orders the execution of commanding officers to prevent a revolt. A tall Jantari soldier incites a riot by breaking through the fence, launching a brutal prison break. In the chaos, Samson is nearly killed but ultimately unleashes his Agni-infused Urumi, slaying the rebel and others in a fiery dance of destruction. His power overwhelms him, leaving him physically wrecked and spiritually shaken. He collapses and is brought to his quarters by Chandi. There, he discovers his Agni is spent, unable to summon even sparks. Samson realizes his bond with the Inferno is consuming him, its hunger indistinguishable from his own, and as exhaustion overtakes him, he falls into a terrifying, silent void. In Chapter 6, Samson awakens from a nightmare of losing his Agni to a void of nothingness, shaken but alive. Revived by Chandi using heated coals placed on his chakra points, he confirms his Agni has returned, though weaker. Chandi warns him that recovery took 5 hours, far longer than before, and urges him to consider the Sona operation to restore his Agni before it fades permanently. Samson resists, claiming Elena's deep, balanced Agni might hold answers. He recalls his mother teaching him to open his navel chakra to channel divine power, but also the curse. Each time he overuses Agni, cold creeps in, threatening to extinguish him. Samson insists on learning from Elena before risking Sona. Chandi remains skeptical, pressing the urgency. They joke to ease the tension, but even as Samson joins the city's celebrations, the shadow of his limitations looms. The pain lingers, constant, quiet, and ever-threatening. His power is burning him out. In Chapter 7, Elena and Samson stand before the eternal fire, its power unsettling her. Samson, renewed and reverent toward the great serpent, urges Elena to reject the phoenix as a false god. Though Elena claims skepticism, she still clings to her faith and her mother's belief that the phoenix would rise again. They argue over proof. Samson wants Elena to help disprove the phoenix, but she insists Ravani faith won't waver without evidence. When a rogue flame attacks, Elena repels it, and Samson finishes subduing the fire, revealing his weakening state. Elena later meets High Priestess Sena and Krupa. Though Sena has renounced the phoenix publicly, she still carries remnants of her past faith. Elena asks for scrolls to investigate the phoenix's origins. Sena warns of Samson's power and the danger of their search. Despite this, Elena declares she too is a god and vows to free her kingdom by any power necessary, serpent, phoenix, or otherwise. In Chapter 8, Elena reviews phoenix scrolls aboard the hoverpod, uneasy as Samson flirts with Krupa and asserts his title as Blue Star, the serpent's prophet. He proposes seeking an alliance with King Scylla of Silion, but Elena suggests calling the Council of the Second Continent to expose Farron's assassination attempt and rally the other kingdoms. The plan is strained when Elena learns General Edmund, a key bargaining chip, has been killed by Samson during a prisoner uprising. Tensions rise as Visha mocks the plan and Samson urges targeting Jantar's northern mines. The argument is interrupted by unrest at the medic tents. A Ravani mother demands her burned daughter be treated over a Caesarean boy. To defuse the conflict, Elena intervenes, but Samson abruptly uses Agni's fire to heal the girl in front of the crowd. The stunned refugees begin to kneel to Samson as their prophet. Elena remains standing, feeling her authority erode beneath his rising influence. In Chapter 9, Samson begins to gain devoted followers after healing a child, sparking both awe and resentment. While some call him a cursed false prophet, others defend him as divine, including the child's mother who proudly shows off Samson's healing mark. Elena watches the growing devotion with unease and leaves, but Samson is haunted by her absence and conflicted feelings. Chandi leads him to a basin where a strange messenger made of black sand awaits, an Arohasan construct embedded with Jantari tech. When approached, it triggers a near detonation before dissolving, leaving behind a holopod and a message from Akaros, Samson's brutal former mentor. The message offers an alliance and confirms that the Arohasan know about the Amrithi ore and Agni. Shaken, Samson resists Chandi's push to accept the offer. Instead, he reconnects with Elena in the watchtower, where shared grief over Yasin softens their bond. Samson promises not to destroy the temple, yet secretly plans to harness Elena's Agni. In Chapter 10, Elena wrestles with rising fear, jealousy, and doubt as Samson's influence grows and her own connection to the eternal fire phrase. While studying old scrolls, She reflects on his power and the dangerous possibility that her people may abandon her for a new prophet. Her grief for Yasin and uncertainty about her place deepen. Krupa assists her in reviewing temple records, where they uncover conflicting histories of the eternal fire, some claiming it existed before the sixth prophet, others crediting her with its creation. A diary from Priestess Nomu, signed AM, reveals the fire grieves, not rages, and possibly sensed danger from Elena herself. As Elena studies the scrolls and remembers her mother's teachings, she realizes her Agni might be the very power that once imprisoned the phoenix. Rage, not grief, pulses through her now. In that fury, she confronts a grim truth. If she's to protect her place, she must make the prophet bend before he destroys her. In Chapter 11, Samson deciphers a coded message from Elena and sends it to Scylla of the Cilioni. As he prepares for battle, he reflects on his heritage, his mother's Urumi, and his past grief over Yasin. He secretly instructs Aquino to forge a matching Urumi for Elena to create an Agni conduit between them, hoping to control both their powers. When Elena unexpectedly enters the room, Samson lies about the rebels' urgency and diverts the topic to training. In the ruined courtyard, they discuss the nature of their Agni and the need to amplify it to defeat Farin. Samson recalls how he first sensed Elena's Agni years ago and now recognizes they share a divine kinship. Elena summons a powerful red flame effortlessly, astonishing Samson. She insists they train without weapons, challenging him to show his Agni. When their flames meet, it's a test of power, ending with Elena demanding he leave his sword behind. In Chapter 12, Elena meets Samson in the canyon for their first true Agni training. Samson immediately demonstrates the precision and speed of his fire using his Urumi, unsettling her with its hunger and control. When she summons her own Agni, it resists her again, revealing how unstable and ravenous it has grown. Samson pushes her, explaining the true nature of Agni, its hunger, and the danger of repressing it. He shows her how prana moves through the navel and heart chakras, warning that refusing Agni's appetite leads to death. During training with chakrams, Elena's fire nearly escapes her control, triggering memories of Magar and Yasin's death. Samson challenges her lack of faith in herself, provoking her frustration and fear. After nearly losing control again, she leaves, shaken, but Samson stops her, urging her to make Ravence her faith. Elena returns, summons her Agni with new purpose, and successfully controls it through the chakram. Samson praises her progress. Tomorrow, they train with the Urumi. In Chapter 13, Samson arrives early for training, mesmerized by the residual imprint of Elena's Agni on the rocks. Still obsessed with harnessing her power, he gives Elena a specially forged Urumi meant to link their Agnis. She is wary but accepts the blade. Samson demonstrates his Urumi technique, stunning Elena with his skill and summoning awe in her. As he trains her, their physical proximity and growing attraction heighten the tension between them, but Samson remains focused on his goal, to feed on her Agni and restore his own. Elena slowly learns to wield the Urumi with increasing precision. When she finally infuses it with Agni, Samson seizes the chance to touch her hilt, triggering a powerful surge through their shared weapon. For a moment, he feels the full force of her divine fire, intense, painful, and overwhelming, before she drops the blade. Just then, Krupa interrupts with a revelation. The Phoenix exists. In Chapter 14, Samson reels from the brief, overwhelming connection to Elena's Agni, desperate for more. As they follow Krupa to the temple, crowds clamor for Samson's attention, calling him prophet, while ignoring Elena, highlighting his rising divine status. Inside the temple, Krupa shares discoveries from ancient scrolls. The eternal fire's grief is part of a triad of divine powers, 3 goddesses implying the phoenix is real and one of them. Samson struggles to control the temple fire, shocked when it resists him for the first time. Krupa suggests Elena's Agni may come from the Yumi's goddess, one of the triad, and Elena proposes traveling to Moksh to gain the Yumi's support. Samson, threatened by the idea, argues against it. They agree she must first finish her Urumi training to prove herself. As tension builds between belief systems and divine origins, Elena demands Samson celebrate Lal Jun with her, uniting Ravence's queen and prophet in public for the first time. In Chapter 15, Elena joins Lal Jun's celebrations in the city square, haunted by memories of childhood and her parents. As she navigates the joyful crowd, she battles private grief and resentment toward Samson, especially as Ravani citizens flock to him as their prophet, overlooking her. When Samson arrives, dressed regally and commanding attention, Elena feels overshadowed and alarmed by how effortlessly he seizes their devotion. In a public power play masked as tradition, Samson presents Elena with elaborate anklets, placing them on her feet in an intimate gesture that stirs the crowd and flusters Elena. Though seemingly romantic, the act is calculated, meant to elevate his image and imply unity. Elena, however, sees through the manipulation. While the crowd swoons, she steels herself emotionally. Determined to reclaim control of the narrative and outmatch his theatrics, Elena ends the scene by drawing her sword, ready to present a bold counter-gift that reminds everyone she is queen. In Chapter 16, Samson reacts warily when Elena publicly offers him a sling sword inscribed with the desert oath. "The queen is the protector of the flame, and I its servant." Though the gesture appears ceremonial, Samson instantly recognizes it as a calculated power play meant to reclaim authority in front of the Ravani crowd. Internally enraged by the word servant, he recalls his past subjugation and vows never to kneel again. Yet Elena continues, invoking Ravence itself as God and reminding him of his earlier words. She corners him with the crowd's expectations and a whispered reminder of his promise to her during their Agni training. Trapped between pride and politics, Samson finally submits and takes the oath publicly. The crowd erupts in celebration, showering him with crimson powder. But internally, Samson simmers with resentment, torn between admiration for Elena's cunning and his insatiable hunger for Agni. Just then, Visha delivers urgent news. A Silioni tanker approaches. In Chapter 17, a Silioni tanker arrives in Magar with armed soldiers claiming to escort Queen Elena to King Sila. Though suspicious, Elena cleverly insists Kiri, the ambassador, stay behind as her guest, forcing Sila's hand if it's a trap. With Kiri grounded, Elena and Samson board the tanker. During the tense flight, they evade a Jantari phantom drone, learning the true threat of Farron's advanced surveillance. They arrive in the Agni Mountains and meet King Sila, a longtime ally of Elena's father. Sila reveals the Jantari killed Ravence's generals and confirms the continent's reliance on Jantari metal. Elena proposes calling the Council of the Second Continent to unite kingdoms against Farron, but Samson undercuts her plan, offering Sila a secret mining strike strategy instead. Backed into a corner, Elena must agree. She realizes Samson sees her not as an equal, but as a tool. With rising rage and political resolve, she seals the deal. Ravence will destroy Farron's mines with Cilion's ships. In Chapter 18, Elena and Samson return from Silion, tense after Samson undercuts her political authority. When Elena confronts him at the temple, their argument explodes. Sila leaves Kiri and Magar as a political observer, while Elena clutches his gifted holopod, reminded of her father's past. Elena accuses Samson of manipulating power, using Ravani beliefs to serve himself. Their ideological clash escalates when she realizes he's the one who unbound the eternal fire that killed her father. Samson defends his actions, calling Leo a tyrant and insisting his plan to destroy the Jantari mines is necessary. Their fight turns physical, Agni against Agni. Flames clash as Samson violently overpowers Elena. He wounds her, disarms her, and ultimately slams her into a wall, nearly choking her unconscious. Declaring himself far worse than a butcher, Samson leaves her bleeding and broken in the rain. The crowd, once hers, follows him. Elena is left abandoned, humiliated, and alone. In Chapter 19, Samson reflects on the brutal fight with Elena, shaken by her words and the blood on his hands. Haunted by scars and trauma from growing up under Jantari oppression, he justifies his violence as a survival forged by colonization. Though he regrets hurting Elena, he clings to the belief that they were meant to lead together, until her rejection severs that bond. Chandi interrupts, not with scolding, but admiration. She leads Samson outside where a growing crowd reveres him, not as a butcher, but as a prophet. Their chants validate his power. Samson, still conflicted, steps into their worship. They call him savior, plead for blessings, and offer their devotion. Emboldened, he allows them to destroy the Phoenix Temple. The spire crashes down, symbolizing the fall of old faith. Samson blesses his followers with Agni markings, cementing his godlike image. When asked what comes next, he names it plainly: vengeance. In Chapter 20, Elena wakes bruised and broken after Samson's attack. The physical and emotional trauma fuels her rage, but Krupa's warning cuts deeper. The people now see her as unfit to lead. Samson has stolen their favor, their faith, and even destroyed the temple. Elena realizes that if she challenges him now, she will lose again. But she refuses to be caged or diminished. She gathers her strength and confronts Samson at the command center. Everyone braces for a fight, but instead Elena kneels before him. She publicly apologizes and acknowledges him as prophet, winning back his trust while masking her fury. Samson, visibly moved, accepts her gesture. The two reconcile, not as equals but as co-conspirators, agreeing to plan their next strike together. Elena swears to change the power play in 2 weeks and reveals her deeper motive. She will pretend to stand beside him, until she's strong enough to destroy him. In Chapter 21, a week has passed since Elena knelt before Samson. Though they now work side by side, Samson remains suspicious of her motives. Elena has shown no signs of retaliation, which unsettles him. Despite his distrust, Samson is drawn to the possibility of a real alliance, imagining a future where Ravence and Seshar are free and Jantar burns. While inspecting the Jantari prisoner camp, they meet Ambassador Kiri of Silion, who insists they begin planning a prisoner exchange. Kiri proposes only the return of Ravani and Silioni captives, dismissing the enslaved Sesharians as non-prisoners. Samson is furious, but it is Elena who boldly defends Sesharian rights, warning that they won't take the mines unless all prisoners, including Sesharians, are freed. Samson is taken aback by her support and humor, and despite his restraint, he finds himself drawn to her again. Their alliance deepens, but so do the undercurrents of distrust, ambition, and emotion. In Chapter 22, Elena meets privately with Ambassador Kiri, subtly navigating both diplomacy and power. Though Kiri apologizes for insulting the Sesharians, he quickly tests Elena's resolve, questioning where her loyalty lies, Ravani or Sesharian. Elena declares her devotion to all who call the desert home, but Kiri hints at growing doubts about her rule and loyalty among her people. When Elena requests permission to cross the Ahisi using the Silioni tanker to deliver Firma's ashes to Moksh, Kiri grows suspicious. Elena lies, saying Moksh's queen is Firma's grandmother and that Moksh has requested an audience. In truth, she seeks Moksh's help in the coming war. To convince Kiri, Elena reveals her ability to summon fire, countering rumors that only Samson holds divine power. She suggests the Yumi will be drawn to her abilities and implies Kiri himself has a glorious role to play. Moved by ambition, Kiri agrees to grant her passage that night. In Chapter 23, Samson wrestles with pain and self-doubt as the pressure of leadership mounts. While Ravani citizens revere him as a prophet, he feels the cost of playing God, using ganja to suppress the toll on his body. Visha presents a daring plan to destroy the Jantari mines by triggering a landslide via underground tunnels. While strategically sound, Samson hesitates, haunted by traumatic memories of his past as a disgraced Jantari mine overseer and his fear of the dark. Chandi senses his fear and intervenes, warning the plan endangers both soldiers and Sesharian prisoners. Just as the team reevaluates, Akiri bursts in. Elena has secretly fled Magar with the Silioni ambassador and taken the tanker. Samson receives her urumi and anklets, confirming she disabled her trackers and left on purpose. Before he can process the betrayal, alarms erupt. A glowing metal lotus signals imminent danger. The Arahassan have returned. The city braces for a new attack. In Chapter 24, Elena secretly crosses the Ahisi with Kiri en route to Moksh. Though haunted by her fears, she's driven by ambition to return with the Yumi and reclaim her people's loyalty. Sila praises her plan, believing they can strike a powerful alliance. As they near Moksh, they receive no landing clearance. Then, through static, coordinates are sent. Flying past the smoldering, half-destroyed capital of Azadi, they learn Moksh has suffered a mysterious attack. Elena lands near a sacred Yumi temple by a silver river. The temple, formed of twin pyramids and crowned by waterfalls, overwhelms her senses. She is greeted by twin Yumi priestesses, joined at the hip, who reveal a chilling truth. The Mokshi queen is dead, murdered by her own people in a revolution. They welcome Elena as if by prophecy, calling her Queen of Fire and claiming they've been expecting her. The chapter ends with Elena stepping into an uncertain alliance with radical mystics. In Chapter 25, Samson faces the arrival of Akaros, his old enemy and a member of the Arahassan, who enters under a flag of truce. Though reeling from Elena's sudden departure, Samson agrees to a tense parley. Akaros mocks his faith in Elena, warning that her return with an army could undermine Samson's own command. Akaros then reveals he was invited, likely by Chandi, and offers a dangerous bargain, help to take Farin's mines in exchange for Amrithi, the powerful metal only Samson can awaken. Akaros unveils an army of grotesque, inhuman constructs, twisted beings of limbs and sand, capable of overwhelming the Jantari. He proposes a joint assault, with his creatures striking while Samson seizes the tunnels. Pressed and isolated, Samson is forced to consider alliance with his enemy. The chapter ends with Akaros introducing Jaya, a lethal Yumi and their chief game master who appears to control the horrifying new army. A brutal, unnatural war looms. In Chapter 26, Jaya's backstory unfolds, revealing her lifelong struggle as a clipped Yumi, born without hair magic and shunned by her community. Her talent for strategic gameplay eventually catches the eye of Akaros, who mentors her into becoming a game master. After her family is killed by gold caps for alleged rebellion, Jaya joins Akaros and the Arohasin, driven by vengeance. In the present, Jaya introduces herself to the Ravani War Council, including Samson, Chandi, and Visha. She explains her sand-sworn army, crafted from black magnetic sand and controlled via her metal lotuses. Despite Samson's trauma from tunnels and mistrust of her constructs, Jaya demonstrates the lotus's ability to form weapons, including a sand version of Samson's Urumi. When Samson asks if his Agni can flow through it, he ignites the sand Urumi in blue fire, proving it works, before it collapses. Still impressed, he agrees to the alliance. Jaya, however, secretly hungers to understand and replicate his Agni, believing it may hold the cure for her brother Div. In Chapter 27, Elena enters the sacred Yumi temple alone, led by twin priestesses. Inside, she meets High Sister Sura, a clipped Yumi with golden eyes and red tattoos who claims Elena's mother prophesied her arrival. Sura reveals the Yumi created the fire dance and invites Elena to perform it. During the ritual, Elena experiences a powerful spiritual awakening. The temple's sandstorm trial forces her to confront her deepest grief, especially over Yasin's death, and she realizes her identity is inseparable from those she's lost. Through this awakening, Elena connects with the goddess's inferno and learns she is one of the Triadni, 3 divine wielders of Agni, alongside Samson and a third yet to rise. Sura gives Elena a phoenix feather that, when given to Samson, will allow her to siphon and eventually devour his Agni. Before she can act, Rumia, the queen's killer and new enforcer, arrives to take Elena to the Makshi general. A political power shift is revealed. In Chapter 28, Samson prepares to lead a strike on the Jantari's northern mines. Grieving and conflicted about Elena's betrayal, he joins a mixed force of 90 Ravani, Black Scale, Arohasin, and Siliona soldiers. Guided through a mountain pass, they arrive at the abandoned tunnels beneath the mines, while Jaya sets up her magnetic sand army, needing 7 hours to prepare her constructs. As the squad split to rig explosives across the tunnels, Samson battles rising panic from his past traumas in the mines. Reaching a key junction, he channels his Agni into a compressed fireball, feeding off the explosion's force. He splits the fireball and launches it through the tunnels, igniting a strategic inferno to collapse the mining chambers. Once the firewall seals the blast safely behind them, alarms sound. Jaya warns that the Jantari Tin Men, security mechs, have been activated. Grinning through the rising chaos, Samson declares, "It's time to hunt." In Chapter 29, Elena arrives at the Makshi Palace and meets General Daz, the Yumi usurper who overthrew his sister, the former queen. Contrary to her expectations, Daz is scholarly and soft-spoken, but his sharp intelligence and ambition quickly become clear. He frames his actions not as a coup, but as a revolution, claiming the former queen ignored threats from Farin and Mandur, who plan a mining alliance and naval buildup to invade Moksh. Daz proposes an alliance. Elena will help him gain a seat on the Continental Council in exchange for Makshi military support. Elena, furious and disillusioned, realizes he's no different from others trying to leverage Ravence for power. She refuses to promise him a seat, asserting that Ravence doesn't need Samson or outside power. It needs her. Despite Daz's warning that saving Seshar helps Ravence, Elena rejects the manipulation. Her resolve to reclaim her throne alone hardens. In Chapter 30, Samson races to evacuate the mines before his inferno consumes the tunnels. Chandi's squad is ambushed at the transport bay, and Samson arrives just in time to help. During the firefight, a grenade detonates, but Samson uses his Agni to contain the explosion, nearly exhausting himself. Afterward, he finds Chandi wounded, but alive. With her encouragement, Samson and Aquino head to the barracks to rescue trapped Caesarian miners. When they reach the sealed door, they discover the Jantari have locked the system, cutting off access. As the mines begin collapsing, Samson desperately tries to open the door but is too weak to summon more flame. With time running out and the Jantari sealing escape routes, Samson makes the devastating decision to retreat. Aquino refuses to abandon the trapped miners and pulls a weapon on Samson, but ultimately lets him go. The chapter ends with Samson escaping, haunted by the lives he left behind. In Chapter 31, Elena returns to the Silioni tanker after her failed mission in Moksha. Though General Daz offers political support in exchange for a council seat, Elena is too humiliated by her powerlessness to respond. Daz warns her of pride and obsession, but she leaves silently. Aboard the tanker, Elena reveals to Kiri that the Queen of Moksha is dead and a Yumi coup has taken control. She omits her visions and the truth about the third Agni. Kiri is uneasy about Daz's offer, but agrees to discuss it with King Sila. Elena examines the phoenix feather gifted by High Sister Sura and finds her mother's initials on it, AM, for Anna Madhani. Shocked, she begins to question her mother's death. News arrives that Samson has successfully taken the mines, securing 50 ore payloads. Elena is left feeling overshadowed and bitter, her resentment deepening as others begin to praise Samson as the conquering hero. In Chapter 32, Samson returns to Goldor with news of the successful mine raid, 50 payloads secured, but is haunted by guilt over abandoning 400 trapped Caesarian miners. Though King Sila praises the operation, Samson's internal shame deepens. His fears worsen when Sila reveals horrifying footage. Farron is forcibly removing Caesarian children from their homes, claiming it's for their protection, blaming Samson for the mine deaths, and provoking global outrage. As the Council of Kingdoms is finally set to convene, Sila warns that Farin's bloodshed is strategic, meant to bait Samson into a violent response. Tensions rise between Sila, Jaya, Akaros, and Samson. Akaros suggests focusing on Amrithi, a legendary metal that could tip the balance of power. Though Chandi and Jaya oppose it, Akaros insists it's Samson's only hope. As emotions boil, Elena arrives, interrupting the debate with a powerful declaration, reclaiming her agency and reigniting the central conflict between them. In Chapter 33, Elena arrives at Goldor and confronts King Sila and Samson upon learning that Farron has called a council. She immediately suspects a trap. Sila confirms Farron's terms come at a price, news which Samson avoids until Elena forces the truth. 400 Caesarian miners died in the mine collapse, and Farron is now using the tragedy to round up Caesarian children into camps under the guise of protection. Horrified, Elena berates Samson for failing to control the fires and abandoning his people. Their clash reignites old wounds and exposes the deep fracture in their alliance. She lashes out at Chandi and demands answers, but Sila interrupts, urging unity in the face of Farron's aggression. Tension escalates when Elena encounters the Arahassan, Akaros, and Jaya, unaware of their alliance with Samson. Samson mocks her, spiraling into bitter laughter. Elena then reveals the phoenix feather gifted by the Yumi priestess, a potential key in the coming conflict. In Chapter 34, Samson collapses in the palace courtyard, gripped by an intense, paralyzing pain as his Agni vanishes and cold fire consumes him from within. Disconnected from reality, he's thrust into a terrifying vision. The dark tunnels, the great serpent, and a black fire that takes the shape of a phoenix attacking the god. Amid the chaos, a dark figure with golden eyes haunts him, and shadows rise, choking him in overwhelming cold. As the vision deepens, Samson is stripped of power, unable to summon his flame. He's crushed between forces beyond his control, the serpent and phoenix locked in battle, representing divine forces tearing each other apart. Elena reaches him in the real world and tries to rouse him, but he's too far gone, suffocating from within. This moment marks a critical turning point. Samson's godhood is destabilizing, his Agni is failing, and the divine war hinted in visions begins to manifest, pulling him into a spiral of dread. In Chapter 35, Samson collapses from the effects of touching the phoenix feather, his Agni extinguished and his body overtaken by a chilling force. As medics rush in, Elena realizes the only way to save him is with fire. Despite Chandi's warnings, she channels her Agni into Samson, trying to revive his fading flame. Elena struggles with the moral weight of saving a man she views as both Butcher and Blue Star, knowing letting him die could prevent future destruction or make him a martyr. As her fire touches him, she finds his Agni buried in darkness, corrupted by a toxic presence with golden eyes. Samson revives violently, choking Elena in a flash of confused terror before regaining himself. Horrified, she recoils. Though he apologizes, the damage is done. Elena, shaken and uncertain, walks away, haunted by the thought that in saving Samson, she may have unleashed a greater doom upon the world. In chapter 36, Samson awakens from haunting visions of the black figure crowned in white fire, his Agni still weakened. Chandi comforts him and demands he stop wallowing in guilt over the Sesharian miners and Farron's rise. She reminds him of the burden he carries and urges him to face Farron at the council. Moved by her words and loyalty, Samson vows to keep fighting. He reunites with Elena, returning her Urumi and awkwardly attempting reconciliation. Their exchange is tense, but charged with buried emotions and shared guilt. In a sparring moment, Elena's Agni sparks his own, revealing that their flames have linked, an Amrithi bond, rare and powerful. His eyes turn blue on blue, marking a divine transformation. As they sit by the fire, they finally reach mutual understanding. Ravence and Seishar's freedom are one fight. Samson pledges his allegiance, and together they prepare to return home, demand justice at the council, and confront Farron together as allies. In chapter 37, Elena recovers from Samson's attack, her bruises treated but not forgotten. Though offered justice by King Sila, she refuses execution. Samson is too powerful and too beloved. She meets Sila at the floating islands of Nimia, and they discuss the mounting threat from Farron, who plans to send a fleet to Mander. Farron exploits a loophole in the Treaty of Borders. Seishar has no protection, making it vulnerable. Elena proposes a bold strategy. Bait Farron by offering Samson and the Black Scales at the council, luring him into a trap. She plans to ally with the Yumi General Daz, gaining their support and council presence. When Elena finally reveals herself at the summit, it will expose Farron's treaty breach, forcing global intervention. Though Sila warns her not to let vengeance consume her, Elena hardens, determined to sacrifice Samson if needed, not out of mercy but strategy. Her pain, ambition, and wrath now shape the queen she's becoming. In chapter 38, Jaya investigates Samson's Agni readings and discovers his power channels through his Urumi, while Elena's fire responds to dance, the goddess's dance. When Samson was revived by Elena's flames, his temperature spiked unnaturally, hinting she may have altered his Agni. Jaya, desperate to save Div, prepares to give Elena a second metal lotus which could counteract Samson's growing instability. While observing the temple, Jaya hears local Sesharians criticizing Samson's failure at the mines, mourning the 400 dead, and questioning his leadership. She reports this unrest to Akaros, recognizing a potential opportunity to turn the people against the prophet. Later, at a public ceremony, Elena and Samson appear united, declaring peace and jointly lighting a new temple fire. But Jaya senses hidden tension. In private, she warns Elena of the Sesharian unrest and offers her the lotus. Elena refuses, defending Samson fiercely, but Jaya sees through her. Beneath Elena's loyalty lies pain. The real game has just begun. In chapter 39, Samson grapples with the weight of his failures and the judgment of the people, haunted by the 400 Sesharian miners who died under his command. He approaches the eternal fire, attempting to heal himself, but finds his Agni weakened and the fire resistant to his control, leaving him physically and spiritually shaken. Sena assists him, but Samson recognizes his vulnerability and the growing instability of his power. Elena arrives to inform him that a comms channel with the Yumi is open, signaling the need for urgent strategic coordination. They travel together to the war room, where they meet General Daz, who presents his proposal to involve the Yumi in the upcoming council. Samson and Elena discuss the political and military stakes. Farron is sending 2 symbolic warships, the Lord of Sea and Relentless Destiny, to Swana as a show of force. Elena accepts Daz's proposal for a council seat, planning to intercept the ships and use the opportunity to challenge Farron. Samson supports her, aware that this action demonstrates both Seishar and Ravence will fight back. In chapter 40, Samson, Elena, Chandi, and Jaya arrive at Iona aboard the tanker to meet the Ioni for strategic coordination against Farron's kingdoms. The city is vibrant, yet eerily silent, with workers moving like automatons. The Ioni dockmaster explains the rules. They must stay within set boundaries, speak only when addressed, and wear tracking armbands. Samson, Elena, Chandi, and Jaya are allowed 1 companion each. Inside, They review the Yumi ships and battle plans with General Daz and Ione advisors. Samson notes the dangers of navigating the Black Pit, where sensors fail. Jaya and the Yumi offer tactical insights to intercept Farron's killdoms safely. As they prepare to embark, the Ione demand 50 Sesharian men as payment, effectively forcing servitude. Chandi and other Black Scales volunteer themselves to cover the debt, ensuring the mission proceeds. Samson is trapped and unable to intervene as his men and Elena are endangered, demonstrating the high stakes of the journey and the sacrifices required to challenge Farron. In Chapter 41, Elena watches Samson recover from the traumatic events at the docks, haunted by the memory of Sesharian soldiers trapped and silenced under Brisingi's orders. Samson feels guilt and despair over his failures to protect miners, his men, and Chandi, perceiving both as cursed gods whose actions bring ruin. Elena, witnessing his vulnerability, struggles with her conflicting feelings, acknowledging their shared burdens but refusing to yield to him. Elena leaves Samson briefly to collect herself on the upper deck, reflecting on her legacy of destruction and the deaths caused by both her and Samson. General Daz joins her, warning of the Black Pit ahead, emphasizing its dangers and illusions. He reassures her that the Sesharians will survive and eventually forgive them, though she doubts her obligation to them. Elena resolves to prioritize Ravence while supporting Samson in freeing Seshar, recognizing the political and personal stakes. Together, she and Daz prepare for the next stage of their journey. In Chapter 42, Samson faces the approaching Black Pit, weighed down by grief for the Sesharians lost under Brisingi's traps and the miners sacrificed in the previous battles. He feels hollow, powerless, and haunted by past failures, his Agni diminished. Elena steadies him, grounding him with her Agni and presence, reminding him that they are not alone and restoring a flicker of hope. Samson prepares to lead the remaining Sesharian soldiers. Only 40 of the 60 survive, alongside Chandi, Visha, and Daz, understanding the stakes, a confrontation with the Jantari killdoms and the defense of Seshar. He exhorts his soldiers to fight not for revenge or duty alone, but for the future of their families, for the world they wish to live in, invoking the legacy of the Great Serpent. Inspired and united, the soldiers raise their weapons in a roar, ready to face the war ahead, embracing both vengeance and protection as they sail toward the Black Pit. In Chapter 43, Elena and Samson face the treacherous Black Pit, where violent seas and a raging storm threaten to destroy their ship. Waves toss the deck violently, throwing soldiers off balance, and Elena is swept overboard but saved by Samson. She struggles to summon her Agni in the chaos, while Samson's own flames are weakened from exhaustion. Working together, their combined Agni forms a protective inferno that pushes back the surging waves, giving them temporary control over the ship. As they brace against the storm, Elena observes a massive, undefined shape emerging from the depths, signaling a greater danger lurking in the pit. Samson asks for her trust, emphasizing their reliance on each other to survive. Despite her fear and doubts about him, Elena places her trust in Samson, linking her Agni with his. Their combined elemental power becomes crucial to navigating the Black Pit and confronting the unknown threat ahead. In Chapter 44, Samson and Elena face the monstrous entity in the Black Pit. Samson feels the overwhelming force of Elena's Agni, sensing he could absorb it to defeat the creature, but realizes doing so would kill her. Choosing restraint, he releases her and they synchronize their movements, combining their Agni with their Urumi. Together, their flames strike the shadowy monster, cutting it and forcing it to flail and shrink under the power of their attack. The inferno cleaves the creature in two, but the battle is chaotic. The ship pitches violently, and Elena loses her grip, plunging into the sea. Samson reacts immediately, launching a powerful Agni flare from his Urumi to strike the monster's core, sending it crashing into the water. Amid the chaos, Samson is struck on the head and collapses, leaving the outcome uncertain. Their coordinated Agni successfully injures the monster, but Elena's fall and Samson's incapacitation escalate the danger for both and the ship. In Chapter 45, Elena regains consciousness aboard the Jantari ship Lord of Sea after being thrown overboard. She is disoriented, suffering from a purple gash on her ankle and minor injuries, and is immediately ordered to work under the supervision of Maya, a ship's healer, and Jantari officers. Her holopod, containing Yasin's recordings, is dead, leaving her without guidance. Elena is dressed in rough clothes to blend in as a Sesharian, assigned menial labor cleaning blood-stained rags on deck. She observes the ship's hierarchy, noticing the Caesarian laborers' fear and the Gentari officers' cruelty. Some Caesarians are pinned along the upper railing, bloodied, as a warning to others. When a boy named Killith whispers about her screams, he is violently punished by an officer. Elena intervenes, defending him and suffering injury, flinging the rag at the officer in protest. This chapter establishes Elena's capture, her forced subservience on the ship, and the brutal treatment of Caesarian workers, setting the stage for her next move and the growing tension aboard the vessel. In Chapter 46, Jaya regains control after the storm and chaos on the ship. She observes that the Phoenix above has cleared the pit, confirming that the storm and sea disturbances had passed. Samson remains at the bow, devastated by Elena's disappearance, overwhelmed with grief and staring at the sea for hours. Jaya gently brings him back to focus, reminding him of their mission against the Jantari Kildums and Chandi's sacrifice. On the bridge, Jaya contacts Akaros to report the situation, revealing that Samson and Elena had melded their Agni during the storm. Samson explains that Elena had given him her Agni voluntarily, confirming their connection. Akaros presses for information about the third Agni, and Jaya cautiously admits its existence without revealing specifics, warning that its full power and location remain unknown. The chapter sets the stage for their next offensive, establishing that despite losses and emotional turmoil, Samson, Jaya, and their forces are prepared to confront the Jantari, leveraging the combined Agni and strategic planning to pursue their battle objectives. In Chapter 47, Elena awakens bound to a Kildum's long-range pulsar, restrained by ropes that dig painfully into her skin. Killith and the captain taunt her, preparing the weapon to harm her and other Caesarians aboard. The captain threatens to extend the labor contracts of her fellow Caesarians to punish her perceived belligerence. Elena attempts to summon her Agni but finds her powers constrained due to the tight bindings and her previous trauma from Samson siphoning her fire. Focusing on a small flame from the captain, Elena channels her Agni through his chakras, violently seizing control of his body. She amplifies his internal heat until he collapses in agony, and the flames burst out, consuming the pulsar and burning her bonds free. Standing victorious, her inferno surrounds her, asserting dominance over Killith and the remaining officers. Maya aids by securing the pod, and Elena recognizes her ally Aquino. In this chapter, Elena fully reclaims her Agni and asserts her identity as the Queen of Ravence, preparing to take control of the ship and her fate. In Chapter 48, Elena, Maya, and 3 rebels sprint through the Kildum to seize the bridge. Pulse fire echoes as Caesarians and officers scramble. Maya guides Elena to a storeroom, providing her a dark slate uniform to blend in. Confronted by officers, Elena uses her Agni to kill one, while her allies subdue the others. They corral the remaining officers as hostages and take control of the bridge. Elena interrogates the officer on watch, learning the red dots on the holo display are Yumi ships that have just sailed from the pit. The Kildum's force field deactivates and no distress signals were sent. During a struggle, an officer attacks Elena, injuring her and damaging Maya's pod, but Aquino intervenes, eliminating the immediate threat. With the bridge secured and enemies neutralized, Elena assesses the remaining Yumi ships and directs the team to pursue them, preparing to seize control and continue their mission. In Chapter 49, Jaya and the crew clear the pit's mists and spot the Kildums racing through the night. The bridge becomes a flurry of activity as Daz orders men to stations and arms long-range pulsars. Jaya realizes Maya's Kildum is unaccounted for, and the lack of her signal raises concern. Despite warnings, Daz directs their attack, targeting both Kildums, while the Bounders prepare to capture them rather than destroy. Akaros takes the Relentless Destiny, and Aphira maneuvers the model ship to align for the assault. The Kildums maintain a fast, tight formation, threatening to pincer them. Jaya presses for a signal to identify Maya's location, but Samson insists on shooting down the ships to gain range. As the Bounders ready spark bombs, Visha spots danger approaching from the port stern. The ship turns sharply under command. Jaya is thrown against the railing, and a bright white dot, Sparker, is seen hurtling toward them, signaling imminent attack and escalating the confrontation. In Chapter 50, Elena senses a foreign fire, the White Sparker, racing from the Relentless toward the Yumi ship. Realizing Jaya, Akaros, and the Yumi could be in danger, she orders Maya to intercept it, despite the rebels and free Caesarians aboard. Elena asserts she can control fire to protect them. She deceives the Relentless, claiming the officer on watch is Officer Narian, preventing them from targeting the Lord of Sea. Maya maneuvers the ship into the Sparker's path. It explodes along their starboard side, throwing the crew off balance and triggering alarms. Elena projects her Agni to seize control of the new inferno generated by the impact, struggling against its resistance. With intense focus, she pulls the inferno into herself, subduing and absorbing it. Collapsing to her knees from exhaustion, Elena surveys the aftermath. A wraith-like enemy ship with black hull and active pulsars, while the Relentless turns its guns toward them, escalating the imminent confrontation. In Chapter 51, Samson senses a powerful surge of Agni and realizes it is Elena, proof she is alive aboard the Lord of Sea. Overcome by the connection, he rushes to the bridge, insisting they turn back to rescue her. Daz, focused on survival and reaching Swana, refuses, arguing their mission takes priority. Samson insists the Lord took the Sparker's hit to protect them and that her flames are unmistakable. When Daz orders a retreat, Samson snaps, igniting his Urumi and threatening to seize command. Chaos erupts as Rumia and Afira attack to subdue him. Rumia's hair cuts his arm, and Afira immobilizes him with her own, slamming him into the wall. Wounded and fading, Samson hears Jaya shouting before collapsing. Daz, shaken but resolute, orders the crew to sail straight for Swana, leaving Elena behind despite Samson's protests, deepening the divide between duty and loyalty within the crew. In Chapter 52, Jaya, bound and bleeding, observes the Yumi ship under Daz and Rumia's control. She realizes Elena is alive, measuring her Agni from afar. Using her cunning, she goads Daz into anger over Yumi's succession, provoking a reaction from Rumia. The chaos gives Samson an opening. He ignites his Urumi, breaking free of his bonds. Jaya strikes strategically, cutting Afira and kicking Rumia, creating enough distraction to allow Samson to fight back. Despite injuries, she continues using her wit and body against the Yumi warriors, eventually enabling Samson to target Rumia with his flames. Visha enters just as Rumia, aflame, crashes through the doors. The battle ends with Rumia overboard, and Samson and Jaya regroup, exhausted and bloodied. Samson apologizes to Jaya, who reciprocates. Daz remains unconscious. Jaya takes control of the ship, noticing the Relentless turning toward the Lord, and confirms to Samson that it is Elena wielding her Agni. They prepare to return to rescue their queen. In Chapter 53, Elena leads a direct assault on the Relentless, using her Agni to propel herself onto the enemy ship. She cuts through Gentari soldiers with her Inferno and Urumi while coordinating with Maya, Tanmay, and Ajira, who fight alongside her. The team disables a pulsar operator by seizing control of the weapon with Elena's fire. Despite their efforts, the Gentari continuously replace fallen soldiers, wounding her allies. Tanmay is hit by a pulse, and Ajira is injured. Elena shields her friends with her flames while continuing to attack, striking down officers and soldiers in succession. She pushes forward across the deck, dodging pulses and daggers, using her Agni to map and exploit the enemy's movements. The relentless assault pushes the Gentari back, but the overwhelming numbers force Elena to manage injuries and chaos as more soldiers swarm her, threatening her and her allies with daggers they cannot manipulate with Agni. In Chapter 54, Samson boards the Relentless with his Sandsworn, who overwhelm the Gentari by blocking their shots and attacking in tandem. He wields his Urumi, slicing through the enemy as he hears Elena's scream, fueling his fury. Samson navigates the chaotic deck, coordinating instinctively with the Sandsworn, controlled by Jaya through the Metal Lotus. He spots Elena, injured and bloodied, but fiercely burning with Agni. As he closes in, they synchronize their Agni, red and blue flames merging into a powerful, overwhelming inferno that incinerates the Gentari in their path. The devastation leaves the deck littered with corpses, smoke, and fire. When the flames subside, Samson collapses, wounded and exhausted, but finds Elena alive. He grasps her hands, reassured that they survived together. Despite the carnage and his own self-loathing, Samson feels a grim satisfaction in sharing the power and destruction with Elena. He jokingly remarks on being late for their appointment to tea. In Chapter 55, Samson boards the Lord of Sea after the battle, greeted by cheering Sasharians celebrating their freedom. He searches for Elena, concerned about her well-being. A deckhand informs him she went to the captain's cabin. Samson finds Elena bandaging her arm. They exchange relieved smiles. He notices her injuries and her faint Agni, signaling she is fatigued but stable. They tend to each other's wounds, with Elena allowing Samson to help clean her cut. They discuss recent events, Daz's attempt to retreat, the deaths of Ephira and Rumia jumping overboard, while Jaya survives. Samson acknowledges Jaya's skill and ferocity. Amid the quiet, they share a personal moment. Samson asks Elena to have tea in honor of his name day, revealing his birth name, Ruru, meaning son of the sea and lover. Elena responds warmly, teasing about honey in the tea. The chapter closes with a sense of calm, recuperation, and intimacy as they prepare to face future challenges. In chapter 56, Elena visits Daz, who is recovering after his failed rebellion. He appears broken but defiant. She offers him a choice: join her before the council to fight Jantar, or remain aboard the Lord of Sea. Daz agrees to aid her, but demands the right to duel Samson afterward to avenge his fallen kin. Though reluctant, Elena accepts, secretly planning to let the Jantari deal with Samson first. Their conversation turns to politics and purpose. Elena declares her intent to propose that Farin withdraw from both Ravence and Seshar, fighting instead for mutual freedom. Reflecting on Maya, Tanmay, and the Sesharians who aided her, she realizes she can no longer see them as enemies. Daz acknowledges her growth, warning that the council will see her as a rebel or war criminal. Elena responds that she will not be either hero or villain, only something greater, ready to face the council's wrath. In chapter 57, Elena and Samson arrive at Swana's grand harbor city, Janoon, to confront the ruling council. Ignoring protocol, Elena storms into the council chamber, bloodied from battle, and takes Ravence's seat uninvited. She shocks the assembled monarchs by accusing King Farin of Jantar of regicide, murdering her father, and manipulating the kingdoms through the Arohassan. She demands freedom for both Ravence and Seshar, withdrawal of Jantari forces, the nullification of Sesharian labor contracts, and even blood payment from Farin's family. The council erupts in outrage, while Farin counters by displaying hollows of Samson's massacre at the mines, branding him a terrorist. Samson defends himself, but Elena silences him, ordering him to leave, betraying his trust. Farin mocks them, and the council wavers between fear and disgust. As Elena departs, she urges the rulers to cut the hand that controls their strings, declaring that she will not bend or submit, only rise stronger. In chapter 58, Jaya navigates the streets and canals of Swana to reach an appointed bridge, then descends a secret chute into the depths of the city. She meets Akaros, who guides her to a secured chamber where Maya and Taran are waiting. The chamber contains hollows and panels displaying detailed recordings of Elena's and Samson's Agni, their flames, temperatures, and movement patterns. Taran examines the data, impressed by Jaya's work, and confirms that she will be the one to play the critical role in the upcoming game to awaken the third Agni. Jaya is instructed to use the readings of Elena and Samson's intertwined Agni to activate the third, a being of immense control and power. As she prepares, Taran reminds her to remain clever, ruthless, and precise. Finally, she sees her brother Div in a medical tube, stable but unconscious, and understands that their next steps, waking him and leveraging the third Agni, will be pivotal to their mission's success. In chapter 59, Elena emerges from a bloodied shower, preparing to address the council. She plans to leverage the intertwined Agnes of herself and Samson to demonstrate Ravence and Seshar's inseparable bond, and to assert their threat, ensuring the council takes her demands seriously. Jaya urges her to act boldly, reminding her that the council will inevitably see her power, so it is better to display it on her terms. Elena initially hesitates, worried that overt aggression could endanger Ravence's future and provoke lasting enmity. Samson arrives, confronting Elena about the moral and political implications of threatening the council, asserting that he is a freedom fighter for Seshar and emphasizing the stakes for his people. Elena listens, but remains focused on her plan to secure both Ravence and Seshar's freedom. She resolves to speak with Queen Risha to sway the counselors, using the threat of her Agni and political reasoning to advance her objectives while preserving her people's safety. In chapter 60, Elena enters the council chamber to finalize the vote on Ravence and Seshar's independence. She observes the rulers' reactions, noting Farin's cold, distant demeanor and the tension among the other council members. Elena reiterates her three demands: removal of all Jantari troops from Ravence and Seshar, nullification of Sesharian labor contracts in Jantar, and the head of Farin's youngest son. She proposes adding a new seat to the council for a powerful kingdom, the Yumi of Moksh, to shift the balance of power. Daz enters with Yumi warriors, and the council reacts with shock. The motion to grant Moksha seat is passed, giving Elena a voting majority alongside Silion, Veran, Ravence, and Moksha. With this majority, she calls for a vote in favor of Ravani and Sesharian independence. The councillors, swayed by the presence and influence of the Yumi, agree, securing political leverage over Farine and positioning Ravence and Seshar to achieve freedom without immediate conflict. In Chapter 61, Samson reflects on his past mistakes and grief while sitting on the beach, lamenting the loss of Seshar and questioning his failures. The Kildums are docked, showing damage from their recent battles. He struggles with feelings of anger, sorrow, and guilt over the losses suffered during the conflict, including the destruction of mines and captured ships, and the hope for Sesharian independence. Suddenly, Visha and Aquino arrive, revealing that Elena successfully negotiated a treaty with Farin, securing the retreat of Jantari forces and granting freedom to both Ravence and Seshar. Samson is stunned, overwhelmed with disbelief, joy, and relief. Visha and Aquino confirm the official ratification of the treaty, effective on the 15th of the month, coinciding with Samson's name day. Overcome with emotion, Samson immediately seeks out Elena in the palace courtyard. He finds her weary and pale but alive. Their reunion is quiet and poignant, marking the end of Seshar's occupation and the beginning of freedom for both realms. In Chapter 62, Jaya navigates the palace under the fading sun, carefully avoiding suspicion from Swanee guards while carrying a metal lotus and the holopod. She moves through the bustling courtyard as attendants prepare for the upcoming celebration, noting the absence of Sesharians among the festivities. Maya approaches, reminding Jaya that she and Akaros are handling the remaining assets, including Div. Jaya reflects on Div's identity as a Yumi and the resentment of her own clipped status, acknowledging her debt to the Arohasan for keeping him alive. She recalls the traumatic fire that nearly killed her family and left Div gravely injured, and the meticulous care Akaros provided to sustain him in a coma, feeding him through the third Agni. At the courtyard, Jaya places the final lotus, preparing the setup for her mission, while observing the royals and attendants with detached calculation. She resolves to protect and restore Div, planning a life of peace for him in the mountains once he awakens. In Chapter 63, Elena receives a golden kamarban from Farin, which contains a hidden tracker, instructing her to lead Samson to the beach near the docks, while Farin's forces handle the rest. She reflects on the weight of the phoenix on the belt and her burdens from the war, acknowledging the destruction caused to Ravence and her people. Suddenly, the High Sister Sura appears, revealing she traveled independently to Tswana and emphasizing the urgency of finding the third Agni, linking Elena and Samson's powers for a larger purpose. Elena, however, focuses on her immediate duty, leading Samson and safeguarding Ravence, dismissing divine concerns and Sura's instructions. She maneuvers through the courtyard amid the celebratory preparations, noting the presence of various kingdom representatives, including Yumi and Sesharians. Jaya observes and confirms the remaining tasks are in motion, emphasizing Div's safety as central. Elena steels herself, preparing to execute her final mission, placing the last lotus and gripping the holopod, determined to act for Div and the completion of her objectives. In Chapter 64, Jaya approaches Elena and Samson to request a temporary infusion of their Agnes for study, arguing that it will allow her to gather critical data before they go their separate ways. Samson warns her of the danger, emphasizing that mishandling the intertwined flames could be catastrophic, but Elena consents after some hesitation. Jaya carefully channels the entwined fire from both of them into a small metal orb, feeling the intense heat as she secures it against her chest. The flames are stabilized, and Elena instructs her to take good care of the orb before departing, leaving the hall with her sari fluttering. Samson, still fixated on Elena, warns Jaya that fire represents more than power. It is resonance and can drive people to madness. Once he follows Elena, Jaya remains alone, clutching the orb, feeling its heat and the responsibility it represents, while thinking of Div and the freedom that is nearly within reach. In Chapter 65, Elena leaves the palace, heading toward the moonlit beach, anticipating Samson's arrival. She struggles with her emotions and the weight of the impending conflict as she meets him, both tense and aware of the danger surrounding them. Their conversation reveals unresolved feelings and mutual attraction, which escalates into an intimate encounter. The moment is interrupted when Farin's forces, including Jantari soldiers, arrive. Samson reacts immediately, defending Elena with his Urumian flames, cutting down attackers with skill and fury. During the skirmish, a soldier stabs Samson through his chest, piercing an old scar, and he collapses to his knees, gasping. Elena attempts to help him, summoning her flames, but is overpowered and forcibly pulled away by a Jantry soldier. The chapter ends with Samson gravely wounded and Elena separated from him, leaving their fates uncertain as the Jantry threat looms and the chaos of battle overtakes them. In chapter 66, Jaya rushes through the palace with the orb and her lotuses, preparing for a critical mission with only 20 minutes remaining. She discovers several of her lotuses have gone offline, realizing someone knows of her plot. As she attempts to escape, Rumia intercepts her, holding the bent and broken lotuses, forcing a violent confrontation. Jaya bites Rumia's ear to break free, but guards approach, prompting Rumia to assert her authority and halt the attack. Jaya seizes the moment to retrieve the orb, but pulse fire and shattered glass threaten her. She narrowly escapes through her room into the garden, climbs the wall, and jumps into the canal. Rumia pursues her into the water, but Jaya, using her holopod, activates holograms to intimidate Rumia. Rumia retreats, and Jaya propels herself forward in the canal, leaving behind her compromised lotuses, but maintaining control of the orb, securing her mission's critical element and evading capture. In chapter 67, Samson awakens restrained in a confined cell, bound by metal bands that tighten when he attempts to use his Agni. The stench and discomfort reveal his physical state after capture. Farron enters, observing him with a mixture of disdain and false paternalism, commenting on Samson's rebellion and the damage inflicted on Jantar, including lost mines, stolen metal, and rebel victories. Samson demands the whereabouts of Elena and his men, but Farron reveals they are either dead or imprisoned. Farron explains that Elena willingly accepted a deal, surrendering Seshar and Ravence in exchange for Samson, confirming that she betrayed him. The revelation leaves Samson in shock and despair. He cannot summon his Agni, overwhelmed by hopelessness and the weight of betrayal. Farron departs, leaving Samson alone to process that he has been used, discarded, and isolated, facing the crushing reality of loss, deceit, and the futility of his efforts against Farron's cunning. In chapter 68, Samson awakens in the mines, weakened, drugged, and chained, facing severe physical and psychological torment. The guards repeatedly humiliate and force him to move, threatening and striking him, while he struggles to resist. He recognizes the familiar terrain of the mines and the Amrithi beneath the mountain, realizing Farin has led him back to the source of its power. As they descend deeper into the mountain, Samson endures increasing panic and exhaustion, but he focuses on memories of loved ones to maintain resolve. The miners recognize him, their hope turning to despair as they see him captured. He senses the Great Serpent's presence and anticipates the impending confrontation. Farron reveals that one of Samson's own, Aquino, assisted in locating the chamber. Samson witnesses Elena bound and forced to watch, intensifying his determination. The chapter ends with Samson breaking against his restraints, moving to protect and reach Elena, setting the stage for a climactic confrontation with Farin and the Serpent. In chapter 69, Elena and Samson confront the aftermath of the Great Serpent's chamber. Elena is attacked by a spectral beast that tears at her flesh and bones, causing intense pain. She clings to Samson, who steadies her and channels his Agni, merging it with hers. Their combined power intensifies, creating a surge of heat and energy that splits Elena's perception, showing her both her own Agni ablaze and Samson kneeling before the dead serpent, his chakras glowing a terrifying blue. As the Agni intertwines, the dead serpent unexpectedly rises, animated by shadows, and speaks with Yasin Knight's voice, acknowledging them with a mocking, sinister tone. Samson and Elena are forced to confront the horror of the serpent's revival, their powers, and the looming threat it represents, setting the stage for the next critical confrontation and the unfolding consequences of their actions with the Amrithi and the serpent. In chapter 70, Samson merges his Agni with Elena's, regaining the ability to summon fire without his Urumi. Their combined power awakens the great serpent, the ancient god trapped within the mountain, whose body is entwined with shadows. The serpent speaks through Yasin's voice, mocking Samson, but he persists, drawing on Elena's Agni despite her resistance. Samson calls to the serpent, pledging to free it, and uses his flames and song, Agnipath, the path of the three, to summon and empower it. The chamber shakes violently as the serpent responds, solidifying from ghostly form to a tangible, massive being with deep blue eyes. Samson endures immense pain as the serpent thrashes, his body racked by agony from the divine energy, while Elena collapses from exhaustion at his feet. Amid the chaos, Samson witnesses visions of fire, darkness, and a metal coffin, signaling further mysteries as the phoenix awakens, its golden eyes opening, marking the next phase of their confrontation with the gods. In Chapter 71, Samson experiences a vision of the desert, vast dunes and oases, observing strange beasts and encroaching shadows. He witnesses a man and two girls performing a sacrificial ritual, with one daughter falling and the other crying as the blaze transforms into something dark and terrifying. Immersed in the abyss, Samson feels the weight of loneliness and despair, confronted by the endless darkness. Amid this, memories of Elena, her touch, laughter, tears, and presence, emerge, pulling him back from the consuming void. He recalls their shared moments, her love, and their promises. The darkness resists, trying to drag him back, but he clings to her memory and the fire of their bond. As he pushes forward, the oppressive shadows begin to recede, and light appears within the abyss. Through his perseverance and connection to Elena, Samson discovers hope, guiding him out of the consuming void and anchoring him in purpose. In Chapter 72, Yasin Knight awakens restrained with tubes pumping a red liquid through him, disoriented and confused. Akaros and a Yumi girl, Jaya, are present, revealing he has been saved and his Agni awakened. A small flame ignites at his feet, and Yasin discovers he no longer burns and can control it. He realizes that his Agni is intrinsically connected to Elena and Samson, their fires linked, but corrupt energy is affecting them. Jaya insists that Yasin uses Fireblood to wake Div, revealing the urgency of his role. When he instinctively touches Jaya with his Agni, he involuntarily accesses her memories, seeing her past, Div, Akaros, and Elena, which overwhelms him. Horrified by the consequences, including her burns caused by his power, Yasin recoils. Akaros calms him, explaining that the incident reveals his true nature and purpose. Yasin is the guardian of the phoenix, creator of the desert, third of the Agni, and the seventh prophet, now fully awakened.